Welcome to C-Files, folks. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate all of you. I got a scorcher today, and I'm going to turn the tables on the Department of Labor and, well, not the Department of Labor, but the public employee unions, the federal unions. They're trying to stop you and me from discovering the corruption that's in our federal government. I'm going to turn the tables on them, folks. So thanks for watching. And here we go. So this came out in Epoch Times, and I was just reading it. And I wanted to go through this article with you on the Department of Labor, the federal employees unions that were filing a lawsuit against DOGE, and what came out of all of that. So it's titled, let me bring it in for you. It's titled, Federal Judge Denies Motion to Block DOGE's, or Department of Government Efficiencies, access to Labor Department systems. In other words, the labor unions tried to stop DOGE from having access to the systems of the Labor Department, and the judge told the labor unions, you don't have standing, you can't do that. And let me go into the article and let them, and I'm going to explain some things, because the argument of the unions, I'm going to show you how asinine those arguments really are. The subtitle says AFL-CIO President Liz Schuler, it's S-H-U-L-E-R, just in case you wanted to put a C between the S and the H, said the unions will renew efforts to keep DOGE from accessing the Department of Labor systems. They're really trying hard to do that, and they're still trying to file lawsuits. But let's go through this line by line and really explain some things here. A federal judge rejected a motion on Friday seeking to prevent the Labor Department from giving the Department of Government Efficiency access to its sensitive information systems, computer systems, and that kind of thing. U.S. District Judge, I should say, John Bates, stated while the court harbors concerns about DOGE's alleged conduct. So he says the court has some concerns about the Department of Government Efficiency's alleged, rumored conduct to access the data. The plaintiffs have not demonstrated legal standing to pursue the lawsuit. So the plaintiffs would be the unions who were pursuing the lawsuit. Quote, this data includes the medical, this is the part I want you to pay attention to. This data includes the medical and financial records of millions of Americans. Pause. Do you have your thinking cap on? What's wrong with that statement? I'll read the rest of the statement for just a moment, but I want you to have in your mind and your thinking cap, thinking, what's wrong with this statement? And this is where I'm going to catch the unions. Quote, this is from the judge, Judge Bates. This data includes the medical and financial records of millions of Americans, period. But on the current record, plaintiffs have failed to establish standing, period, end quote, Bates stated in his 9-page ruling. Question for the unions, the people who belong to the unions, who are working for the Department of Labor. Here's the question. AFL-CIO. What is the Department of Labor doing with our medical records and our financial records? What right does the Department of Labor have to keep confidential files on us, the American people? Why do they have that information? And why do you, federal employee who is a member of the AFL-CIO union, why do you have privilege to have my information in your systems? What makes you so special? What makes you so confidential? What makes you trustworthy? Because I don't trust you. So what are you doing with my medical records and my financial records in your systems, in your highfalutin government agency? Do I want DOGE to go in and find information on you? Oh, yes, I do. I trust DOGE. I don't trust you, AFL-CIO. I don't trust you, federal employee, who has confidential information on me and on my fellow Americans. Why should I trust you with my confidential information? Just because you have this fancy agency and fancy title, Department of Labor, that doesn't make you trustworthy. How does that make you trustworthy with my information? Why should I trust you, AFL-CIO union employee who works for the Department of Labor? What makes you trustworthy with my information? That's the question. If you had your thinking cap on, audience, you figured that out already. We'll read more on the article. Especially with all of this corruption that's being exposed in the federal government and how untrustworthy the federal government is with our money, in that they're money laundering our taxpayer dollars and spending it frivolously and stealing it out of our paychecks. Yes, it's theft. Biblically, it's theft. The income tax in America violates, and I'm telling you right now, any theologian that really wants to look into this, it violates every financial biblical principle found in Scripture. The motion filed by a coalition of labor unions on February 5 alleged that DOGE, an adversary committee led by tech billionaire Elon Musk, that's the whole issue, isn't it? You don't like Elon Musk and you don't like Donald Trump. That's the real problem here, isn't it? Lacked the statutory authority to access confidential systems. Well, what gives the Department of Labor the right to access my confidential information? Anybody want to answer that one? The plaintiffs include the AFL-CIO, the Service Employees International Union, and the Economic Policy Institute, a think tank based in Washington, D.C. Oh, the great temple of Washington, D.C., where we worship at the feet of DEI and critical race theory and wokeism, the cult, the great cult, the official cult of the Washington, D.C. left wing of the government. I'm telling you, this Let me take a sip. I have to pause for just a moment. This year, 2025, you're going to get a lot of videos like this from me. Because I am fed up with the hypocrisy coming out of Washington, D.C. I'm fed up with it. And this is one of the Hippocratic, I don't mean the Hippocratic oath of the doctors. This is one of the forms of hypocrisy that really, really makes me mad. The unions argued that DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, violated multiple laws by having access to sensitive systems. But you are privileged to have access to sensitive systems. An unelected bureaucrat, by the way. They're arguing a legal argument that, well, the Congress did not authorize it. Well, we're going to have to do some research on the Department of Labor and find out when it was formed. And when did the Congress authorize the AFL-CIO labor unions to have for their members to have access to my personal information? When did that happen? Oh, you want to open that can of worms? Oh, yeah. We, the American people, and there are millions of us out here, and collectively, we have a brilliant mind. We may not have it individually, but collectively, on social media, we have a brilliant mind that you guys are up against, and you're not going to win this war. You're fighting a war against the American people. The unions argued that DOGE violated multiple laws by having access to sensitive systems, including those at the Treasury Department and Office of Personnel Management, as they expected the Labor Department to be the next target. They're mad because their money laundering cash cow is being exposed. The guilty dog barks first. And who's the first dog to bark? The AFL-CIO labor unions. What's going on here? Why are they barking? Quote, on information and belief, the pattern will be the same. They will demand that DOGE staff be granted access to systems that they are legally barred from. Well, not according to the courts. They will fire any employee who protects the integrity of those systems. Who protects the integrity of those systems? What makes them so integral? What gives them integrity? I'll wait for an answer. They take our information, the American people's information, without our knowledge and without our permission. Because they're a government entity. They're an executive branch agency. And they think they can just do whatever they want, whenever they want, make up whatever rules they want, and just never be held accountable. Now you're being held accountable, union members. Your agency is being held accountable, and you're barking like a guilty dog. Wow. The arrogance and the hypocrisy in this statement. I'll read it again. On information and belief, the pattern will be the same. They will demand that DOGE staff be granted access to systems. Yeah, they're the Department of Government Efficiency. It's their job to audit the government agencies under the executive branch. That's their job. So what's your problem? they will fire any employee who protects the integrity of those systems. No, I don't agree with how that's put. They'll fire any employee that disobeys the executive orders. Any employee that tries to stifle what the president is doing. Any employee who tries to stop an audit of the agency so as to hide corruption. Can we put it that way? Yeah, I think I'll put it that way. Protects the integrity of those systems. What are those systems doing with my information in the first place without my permission and without my knowledge? Huh? Union employee? And look, I belong to a union myself in the government agencies. I understand how it works. But I don't appreciate the way the government has been functioning lately. And they will claim power and authority that Congress has never granted them. Power and authority that Congress has never granted them. As I recall, the Congress is in the legislative side of the government. They're in the legislative part of the government. Now, let me educate the AFL-CIO and its union members, because apparently you failed civics when you were in high school, okay? Now, the government is made up of 3 different branches: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. And the executive doesn't have to have any permission from the legislative to form the Department of Government Efficiency. It's a separate branch. Does the executive branch tell the legislative branch what rules they can set for their new Congress? Does the president go to the Senate Majority Leader and the Speaker of the House and say, okay, now here's the rules that you're going to have to implement for your new Congress, for your Congress members. You make sure you implement these rules. What would they do? They would scream bloody murder and say, hey, you're in the executive branch. Get back over there where you belong and stop telling us how to conduct our business over here in the legislative branch. But what are these union members saying? Oh, we want the legislative branch to tell the executive branch how they can conduct business in the executive branch. No. Get back over in the legislative branch where you belong and stop telling the executive branch how to conduct business in their own branch. It's called checks and balances. If the legislative branch can tell the president, oh, you can't have this or you must have that, then checks and balances is gone. It's broken down. So there's a little civics lesson for you. Holy cow, the ignorance in this among some folks is, all right. They will claim power and authority that Congress has never granted them with respect to agency staff and department programs. The stupidity of that statement is absolutely mind-boggling. The legislative branch does not determine how the executive departments conduct themselves. The head of the executive branch does, the president. And there are some presidents that need to be called on the carpet because their agencies that they were head of were committing all kinds of corruption, and we're finding it out. So, hey, CEO of the executive branch, what were you doing while this was happening? You know what Trump is doing? He's acting like a good CEO. He's cleaning the corruption out of his corporation, if you want to use an analogy. If Trump took over a corporation, what's the first thing he's going to do? He's going to start auditing all the departments. He's going to start looking, okay, where are the issues? Are we doing everything legally? Are the books in order? Is the money being handled the way it should be? Or is the money being squandered? Or are there illegal things going on in this corporation? If there are illegal things going on in this corporation, I want it cleaned up. Get rid of it. Well, that's what he's doing in the executive branch of the federal government. He's coming in and he's saying, how's the money being spent? And is there anything that's illegal that's going on in the executive agencies that I am tasked to be the head of? And if it is, I want it cleaned up, because ultimately he is responsible for what those agencies do. The buck stops with the president. So thank God there is a president that goes in office and says, you know what? I'm responsible for everything that happens in the executive branch. I need to make sure everything is in order. When's the last time you've had a president that did that? Well, let me see. Let me run through my lifetime. Kennedy wanted to do it, but he met an assassin's bullet. I wonder what that was all about. Johnson came in. He was corrupt as corrupt could be. And then after Johnson, you had Nixon. And of course, they drummed Nixon out on Watergate. Why? Because Nixon was going to expose a lot of this stuff. But yeah, they had to get rid of Nixon, so off he went. Then after Nixon, I believe it was, I want to say that was not Carter yet. There was an in-between Nixon and Carter, and I can't think of his... Why did I just go blank on his name? Anyway, next president came in. He was brought in... Agnew was the vice president, and he went out with Nixon. And then, if I can think of... Ford came in, Gerald Ford. So he was not elected, but he was appointed president. And then he lost the next election. So Ford pardoned Nixon, but he never cleaned house in the federal government. So then you have Carter. Carter came in. He was the nice Christian peanut farmer from Georgia. And did he clean up the mess in Washington? Nope, didn't see any effort from him to clean up all that garbage. So he did 4 years, lost to Reagan. Reagan came in. I liked Reagan. Reagan did a lot of good things, and he did some things I did not like. But did he clean up that mess in Washington? He wanted to, but Hinckley took a shot at him. And he ended up being surrounded by a bunch of snakes in his cabinet and everything. And so his ability to clean it up was it. He couldn't do it. 8 years, helped the economy. He got some things through that he wanted, which helped the economy. But nope, didn't get cleaned up then. And then after Reagan was Clinton. And Clinton worked with Gingrich, the Speaker of the House, and they did some good things economically and stuff. Clinton had his personal issues. His personal integrity was lacking quite a bit, but he did some pretty good policies. But the problem is, he never cleaned up Washington either. As a matter of fact, his wife was, can we say, a part of that issue that we're trying to clean up now. And then, after Clinton, was Bush. And did Bush clean up the mess in Washington, D.C.? Nope. He was too busy with the false flag operation in 9/11, and then finding an excuse to go into Iraq. Nope, he didn't clean it up. And so then we had, after Bush, we had Obama. Did Obama clean up the mess in Washington, D.C.? Well, no, he never did it. He was busy trying to bring the country together while tearing it apart. So Obama didn't do it. So after Obama, Bush Sr. first. There was Bush Sr. first, then Obama. Am I getting this right? No, Bush was. I'm getting my president or the order mixed up. Anyway, there was the two Bushes that never cleaned it up. Obama never cleaned it up. And then after Obama came Trump. Trump, in his first time in office, he was working toward that goal of cleaning up the swamp. But the swamp surrounded him, and he was kind of by himself, and he could not get it done, much in the similar situation as Reagan. And then the next president came in, Biden. Did he clean it up? No, he didn't clean anything up. All he did was he targeted his political opponent and used lawfare and created more corruption in the federal government to go after Trump. And now finally, as Trump is in, and he had 4 years to think about it. And he said, I will create the Department of Government Efficiency. I will do it the same way as if I were running a corporation as a CEO. I'll bring in the best and the brightest to take care of it. And so that's what he has done for almost 3 weeks into the second term. And 3 weeks in, they want to impeach him. The hornet's nest got stirred up. They're suing him. The corrupt machine, the swamp in Washington, is throwing everything they have at Trump because he hit a chord. He's over the target. He dropped the bomb, and it went off, and it took out the target. And that's why you have statements like this coming out of the bureaucracy. So if you work for the bureaucracy and you don't want to look like an idiot, you don't want to look bad, you want people to understand that, look, I'm not a part of that. I'm actually a good person. I just want to do a good job for the people. Then I would suggest that you don't be a part of trying to block the efforts of the CEO of the executive branch of the government from cleaning the mess up. This is the best opportunity since I've been alive for the mess to get cleaned up. So on with the article. That was a lot of history. I kind of got my presents out of order. Normally, I do really well with that, but anyway. Yeah, it was the first Bush, and then it was Clinton, and then it was the second Bush, then it was Obama, then it was Trump, then it was Biden, then it's back to Trump again. So there's the order. All right. The article continues. So that last statement is what the unions alleged in the court filing. And I'll read it one more time. The unions alleged in the court filing, they said, I just want you to hear it one more time. On information and belief, the pattern will be the same. They will demand that DOGE staff be granted access to systems that they are legally barred from, and they will fire any employee who protects the integrity of those systems. That's good news. I'm glad they're doing that. And they will claim power and authority that Congress has never granted them with respect to agency staff and department programs. We talked about that. The unions alleged in the court filing. Now, quote, contrary to its statutory and regulatory obligations, the Department of Labor and its current leadership are acceding to this takeover, ordering department employees to give DOGE access to whatever they ask for, regardless of security protocols or risk termination, end quote, they added. Now, In other words, the new Trump-appointed Department of Labor is cooperating with DOGE and saying, audit away, because I want to clean them. I want to clean this mess up too. You know who doesn't want to clean up the swamp and clean up the money laundering and clean up the corruption and the mess that is in Washington, D.C.? The AFL-CIO and the money that its union members are sending to that organization, they don't want to clean it up. They want to keep the American people under their thumb. This is how unions stay in business, and this is how... So unions have a self-interest too. They want to stay viable. They want to stay viable to their members, and they want to stay in business also because they get their paycheck off of the union dues paid in by the union members. And if they're not viable anymore, and they're not useful anymore, why would the union members want to pay in the money to pay the people who are working for the union? So what do? They do like what they did in California. I belong to a union in California. Why? Because I wanted to? No, because it was required by law that I be a member of the union. Let that one hit you between the eyes. Now, so the unions allege that DOGE will gain access to information about the Labor Department's investigations into Musk's corporate interests as well as his competitors' sensitive trade secret information held by the department. Commenting on the court's decision, AFL-CIO President Liz Schuler said the unions will provide more evidence to support its claims and renew efforts to block DOGE from accessing the data. This is a setback, but not a defeat, Schuler said in a statement on February 7th. You're defeated. You're already defeated, and you don't know it. Democratic lawmakers have been calling for the revocation of DOGE's access to federal payment systems. Yeah, that's their job, is to follow the money and catch the fraud. On February 6, attorneys general from 14 states said the level of access granted to Musk to Americans' personal data was unlawful and unacceptable. Well, what are you doing with it? I asked that again. If that's true of DOGE, then it's also true of those agencies, and it's also true of those 14 states. Their access is also unlawful and unacceptable in my book. They announced plans to take legal action to block DOGE from accessing the Treasury Department's payment systems. The Treasury Department's payment systems. Why? Because they're going to find the fraud. They're going to find the money laundering. The attorneys general argued that, look, they're an agency in the executive branch. They're screaming about being audited. You can't trust them to audit themselves because it will be corrupt. They won't do it in an honest fashion. So you create another agency in the executive branch whose job it is to keep all the other agencies honest and keep them doing things in a manner that is filled with integrity. I couldn't think of a good way to say that. In an honest manner. And also, can we say, a manner that keeps the public informed, transparency. What's all the secrecy? You're talking about my information. And I don't like you having my information, federal government. How's that? And payment systems. Let's see. We're not just talking about paychecks going to their employees, which, by the way, when I was in government in California, anybody could go on the internet and look up my salary and know what I was paid for that year. It was public information. So why all the secrecy, federal government? Why isn't it public information when it comes to you? Are you hiding something? The attorneys general argued that President Donald Trump does not have the power to grant DOGE access to Americans' private information or to withhold federal payments approved by Congress. Now, wait a minute. Other agencies under his executive authority do have the power. So this agency has the power, but this agency over here doesn't have the power under the same executive branch authority? Folks, do you see how dumb that argument is? It's a dumb argument. People don't think now. Dump the indoctrination, education, dump the mind control, dump all of the psychological warfare, dump the mind manipulation that was called education all of your life. Get rid of it. Go outside of the education box and start thinking on your own. And all of a sudden, things will begin to clear up. I'm sorry. I don't want to seem arrogant. But this kind of stuff, I mean, it makes me wonder, who are they hiring? Or is this just intentional deception? The attorneys general argued that President Donald Trump does not have the power. Okay, I disagree with the attorneys general. I mean, I just showed why the argument was dumb. Justice Department attorneys issued a proposed order on February 5, saying the federal government will temporarily restrict DOGE from accessing information in the Treasury Department's payment system and allow special government employees read-only access to the data. Okay? So what are special government employees? What are they? Who are they? Can we trust them? I want DOGE doing the job because that's their purpose in life. You see, they get paid and they exist based upon them finding the corruption in the federal agencies and finding the fraud and the money laundering in the federal agencies and finding the waste and abuse in the federal agencies. That's why they exist, and so they are going to do that job. Why? Because they want to be viable to the head of the executive branch. But if you let these agencies have their special employees do it, they'll never find anything because they're going to try to hide it. That's the problem. Now, DOGE has been tasked with reviewing agencies for potential reductions of federal expenditures and to boost government efficiency. Trump had previously said that Musk would not be able to take any action without approval from the White House, and the government won't let him go near it if there is a conflict of interest. So President Trump is playing the game, but make no mistake about it, the corruption in the swamp is being exposed and will continue to be exposed. And we, the American people, we're fed up and sick and tired of your mind games and your propaganda and your lying to us and all of the money laundering and the fraud and the corruption. that you have been hiding from us, we're done. And if we can't get it done with DOGE, we'll find another way to get it done. We're going to keep coming and keep coming and keep coming until that corruption and the swamp machine is shut down. Bottom line. Being a Christian, I hate corruption. Being a Christian, I hate lies. I hate deception. And that's exactly what I'm getting out of my federal government, and I'm done with it. We're not playing that anymore. That's why I voted the way I did. Thanks for watching. God bless. I'll see you next time on the C-Files.